What's up, guys? It's State of Soccer. This is Brian McDonough, and on today's episode, we have a really good one for you guys. I have Owen, Diana, and Ryan LFC joining us to talk about Mexico and Jamaica, only the next two opponents for the United States men's national team in these upcoming World Cup qualifiers. We'll kick it off with Mexico, talk about their starting 11, some tactical analysis and score predictions. And then we'll kick it to Ryan for the second part of the show, do this exact same for Jamaica. So guys, with that, let's get started. All right, guys, welcome back to State of Soccer. This is Brian McDonough. If you're new to my channel, then welcome to State of Soccer. We talk about all things U.S. soccer, domestic and abroad. And today we're talking U.S. men's national team versus El-Tri, the big World Cup qualifier match coming up. And joining me today, I have a very special guest, Owen, Diana. Owen, how's it going, man?
Going great, Brian. Thanks so much for having me. Great to be back.
No, thanks for joining me again, Owen. And like last episode, why don't you start it off by telling us who you are, what you do, and how you cover El-Tri?
So I cover Mexican soccer, Liga MX as well, and El-Tri for FootMex Nation. Do a lot of writing for them. I'm also on Twitter, very active there, at 4Kicks blog. Covering Liga MX, Mexican soccer in general, El-Tri, also doing highlight videos of different Mexican soccer players and Liga MX players as well.
So I've come across Owen's content. Guys, he's really excellent. If you're an American soccer fan wanting to learn more about El-Tri in English, make sure to give him a follow on Twitter. Check out his blog. Check him out. Really great stuff. Owen, today we're going to dive into the starting 11. You were kind enough to send me the El-Tri starting 11 for this upcoming Friday projected. There's been some very recent changes.
Yes.
So let's kind of focus in on that today. Less U.S., more the opponent, our rival, Mexico.
Perfect. So this is the team. So the formation, there's little mystery there. It's going to be a 4-3-3 from Tata Martino. That's the formation that he's used almost throughout the entirety of his reign with the Mexican national team. There was a brief flirtation with a back three set up in the summer in some of the friendlies, but it's going to be a back four almost surely to face the United States. Same formation that was used in the Nations League final and also the Gold Cup final. Guillermo Ochoa in goal. No surprise there. The clear number one in goal, heading for his fifth World Cup now in Qatar. Then at right back, Jorge Sanchez, I think, has cemented his place as the number one right back. The Club America man. He had a really good Olympics, was very good, held his own against Alphonso Davies in the recent World Cup qualifier against Canada back in October, and then was injured for the matches against Honduras and El Salvador. So didn't have a chance to build on that promising performance. But I think with that showing against the Canadians, I think he's cemented his standing as the number one there at right back. So I expect him to start. Then the recent change, the late change that you were talking about, is at right center back. So Cesar Montes has started 5 of the 6 qualifiers so far for Mexico. The one he didn't start was against El Salvador, the most recent qualifier, and that was for yellow card accumulation. So he's been almost an ever-present for Mexico and has been really solid there. Also one of the bronze medalists from the Tokyo Olympics, had a really good Olympics as well, and has really built off that and become a pillar for the senior side. But he injured his knee last night for Monterrey, his club side, against Club America. And it's been reported now in the last hour or so that he's not going to be called up. He's not going to be joining the team for the matches against the United States and Canada now in this window. So that leaves a real dilemma for Tata Martino, because the natural replacement, if you were just trying to bring in a right-sided center back, would be Nestor Araujo, the Celta Vigo player, but he's suspended because he received a red card for 2 yellows. He got 2 yellows in quick succession against El Salvador and was sent off. So he's suspended for this match as well. So that leaves Tata Martino with a difficult situation. I think it's going to be Cata Dominguez, as you can see here, the Cruz Azul center back, veteran player. He's worked his way into consideration more as a right back, actually, than anything. He plays center back for Cruz Azul, but has a lot of experience at club level as well at different times for Cruz Azul. He's a one-club man playing at right back, and he's played there in some of the away matches that Mexico have had. He played well there against Costa Rica in September, started there against El Salvador, and then when Araujo was sent off, he was moved inside to center back with Mexico down to 10 men and did well there. Now, Johan Vasquez is the player who a lot of Mexico fans will be clamoring for to come in and replace Cata Dominguez. I think the situation, there are two reasons why I don't necessarily think that Johan Vasquez will be thrown into the fire. One, so he's a he's a left-footed player. He has experience playing as a right-sided center back at Pumas, his former club. He's at Genoa now. He moved there at the end of the summer. So he has played some right-sided center back, but he's a left-footed player. Hector Moreno as well as a left-footed player. So I'm not sure about having two left-footed center backs there. Also, Johan Vasquez is a player who's getting experience now in Serie A. He has 5 straight starts for Genoa. In the last window, he was called up in October, didn't play at all. At that point, he still hadn't debuted for Genoa. So he's getting a consistent run of games, but he's only got 2 caps for Mexico, both of which were in, and only 1 start, both of which were in relatively friendlies of little importance, you could say. So he has no experience in World Cup qualifiers. I think to throw a player like that, as promising as he is, he also had a really good Olympics. To throw him in to the deep end, so to speak, in Cincinnati, I think I'm not sure if that's going to happen when you have a Cata Dominguez who's there, who has experience already playing in road World Cup qualifiers in this cycle, has done a job and has performed well in those qualifiers, both at right back and at right-sided center back. So I'd expect to see Cata Dominguez there, although it wouldn't surprise me if Johan Vasquez was there as well. Then Hector Moreno, at left-sided center back, was in Europe for a number of years now at Monterrey. He's slotted back in nicely against El Salvador. He was very solid in the 2-0 win for Mexico. He's had some injury problems over recent months. He left in the first half, late in the first half of the Gold Cup final, for example. So a player who's had some injury struggles over the last few months, but is healthy now and is likely to be the left-sided center back. And then Jesus Gallardo, his club teammate, at left back. I think we spoke about this when I was on a few weeks ago on your show. I think that's the weak link for Mexico, both fullback positions, but especially at left back. I think Gallardo is a player who's really a natural left winger. That's the position he played when he was at Pumas, his formative club. A player who was left wanting as well in the Nations League final, certainly on the second goal for the United States, the 2-2. Not marking well at the back post, not jumping with Weston McKennie. So a player that I think is a weak link for Mexico, but he's one of the players with the most minutes and most games under Tata Martino. So he's definitely the player there who will be starting. Then in midfield, Edson Alvarez and Hector Herrera are 2 of the first names on the team sheet. Edson Alvarez is going from strength to strength with Ajax, has been really good in the Champions League. Ajax, who are doing really well in Champions League Group C, they're top of that group. They've beaten Dortmund twice now, both home and away. In the home leg, they beat them 4-0. So a player who's really, really coming into his own for Ajax in the last year. He's been great for them. Before that, he was struggling to adapt. But since the start of 2021, he's really established himself as a starter there in the holding midfield position for Ajax and is a future captain probably with Mexico as well. At a young age, has already played a ton of important matches, has played in the 2018 World Cup. So a player to definitely keep an eye on, very strong at the base of that midfield for Mexico. And then Hector Herrera, I think will also be in that sector. They were a good partnership. They have a good understanding, him and Alvarez. At the Gold Cup, you could see that. I think that was a strength for Mexico, although they weren't super strong in that tournament. In general, as a collective, I think in midfield, that was a real area of strength for them. Being able to get on the ball, keep the ball, and really try to drive forward through the midfield. Herrera is a player who doesn't start for Atletico Madrid with real regularity, but nonetheless a veteran player who I think his experience will be important, certainly in Cincinnati. And then that third midfield spot, there's a little bit of an open audition for that third midfield spot in the 4-3-3. Charlie Rodriguez is the one I've chosen. You could also put Sebastian Cordova there potentially, or even Luis Romo if you wanted to play a double pivot, put him beside Edson Alvarez at the base of the midfield, potentially in a more defensive setup. Cordova is more of a number 10, isn't as involved in the build-up play, doesn't keep possession as well or recycle possession. I think Charlie Rodriguez is a player who can do that a little bit more for you. He has qualities of a number 10, but also more of a number 8 as well. Shuttles a little bit better from back to front. So I'd expect to see him there. He's started all 3 of Mexico's away qualifiers so far. Did really well in 2 of those against Costa Rica and El Salvador. I thought he looked very good. against Panama, not as much in what was a rejiggered midfield in the third qualifier in September. And was taken off at halftime, but I think he'll be the one who gets the call. He also started in the Nations League final for Mexico as well, in a team that I think is going to be very similar to what we see in Cincinnati. I'd expect to see 7, potentially even 8 players from that starting lineup in Denver starting in Cincinnati, and he would be one of that group. And then up front, I think no surprises in terms of the front three. Chucky Lozano and Raul Jimenez are Mexico's 2 most important attackers, certainly, if not their 2 most important players. Both have been doing well recently at club level. Chucky scored in the Europa League on Thursday. Raul Jimenez has 2 goals, 2 assists in his last 6 matches. One of those matches, he was a late substitute. So a player who, after that horrific injury, is rounding into goal-scoring form. A player who offers you a lot more than goals as well. Really good with his back to goal, really good at turning, supplying key passes, through balls, etc. Tecatito Corona, I think, is the interesting one. He's the one I think to keep an eye on. Not necessarily as the danger man, but to see how he performs. He's a player who likes playing against the United States, scored the opener in the Nations League final, was a real terror for Serginho Dest in the friendly in 2019 that Mexico won 3-0. He's a player who usually performs well in big matches, quite inconsistent for Mexico. He really hasn't been in good form for them in recent months. When Chucky Lozano went down with that horrific neck injury at the beginning of the Gold Cup, Tecatito was the one who was really expected to take the mantle and really push on and really be that player that Mexico could rely on in the attack. It didn't really happen for him in that tournament. And then it was expected that he would get a move away from Porto in the summer. That didn't happen for him. And now he's, if not been completely erased from the lineups in Porto, he hasn't been getting a lot of minutes. So he's got only 75 minutes played in his last 7 matches, hasn't played since October 26th, hasn't even come off the bench in the last 3 matches. For Porto. So a player who's not really getting a lot of minutes and is probably going to have to try to play his way into form. But Alexis Vega isn't in this squad. Aurelian Tuna also isn't in the squad. So some alternatives. Orbelin Pineda's in the squad, but he's more of a left winger, if anything, more actually of a number 10. So there aren't really many alternatives at that right wing spot. Or even if you want to play Chucky Lozano at the right wing position, he does that a lot, or right forward position, he does that a lot for Napoli. He plays there more for Napoli than he does off the left. Play him, for example, at right winger. And if you had an Alexis Vega, you could play Alexis Vega off the left. That's what that was the starting lineup, or the front three, or certainly the wingers, the way Martino chose to align his wingers against El Salvador. But without Vega, without a real alternative at left winger, potentially you could put Orbelin Pineda there and then put Chucky at right wing. But I think Martino is going to trust Tecatito for this match and see how he can perform against a team that he's done well against in the past.
Okay, so in about 8 minutes, you gave us a very well-rounded starting 11 picture for Mexico, which I really appreciate. So if you guys have any questions, leave comments below for Owen, or any questions, in general, and we'll get those answered in the comments. But when it comes to last-minute inclusions, the U.S., obviously, Serginho Dest went down with an injury, as I'm sure you're well aware of.
Yes.
Tecatito Corona in the past is just kind of dismantled Dest, as you said. Now Joe Scally will most likely be slotting in, or DeAndre Edlin will most likely be filling that role, maybe even Reggie Cannon. What are your thoughts there with Dest kind of dropping out due to injury? Do you think Corona will still have the same success? I don't know how aware you are of those players and their abilities. But.
Right. Well, I think it's obviously really good news for Mexico that Dest isn't playing, but I think less for if he was going up against Tecatito, because I would be expecting Dest to be at right back, Anthony Robinson at left back, and Tecatito potentially to be playing off the right.
Sure.
Starting, so he wouldn't necessarily be going directly up against Dest. Where I think it really helps Mexico not having Dest is the relationship he was striking up with Weah and Musa, who was also drifting out to the right a lot from midfield in the qualifiers that the United States had in October. And that was I think that was a real area of concern for Mexico. It still is. But that partnership that he could form, that grouping of 3, that trio that was forming for the United States in that sector, considering that Jesus Gallardo, as I mentioned before, I think is the weak link defensively for Mexico. So having those players attacking Mexico's real weakness defensively, I think was going to be a big concern. Also, when you have Chucky Lozano, who along with Raul Jimenez is one of your best attacking players, certainly from wide areas, your best attacking player. You want to get him on the ball as much as possible, as high up the pitch as possible in space. And if he was going to have to do a lot of tracking back to keep Dest in check, that would negate Mexico's ability to then attack in that sector. So not having Dest there, I think, is a huge advantage. The United States aren't going to be able to attack as well from deep. We'll see if it's Yedlin, if it's Scally. I doubt that Berhalter will be pushing that player up as much. Potentially, we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, possibly Yedlin. Just with his speed and crossing ability.
You certainly wouldn't expect them to be as effective as Dest could be.
Exactly.
And so I think that then becomes really positive news for Mexico, and they can potentially pin whoever the United States choose to play at right back a little bit more with Chucky Lozano versus Chucky Lozano having to do defensive work, having to try to protect Jesus Gallardo from Weah, from Musa moving out to the right, from Dest joining in as well in that sector. So I think that's really good news for Mexico, certainly, to not have Dest playing.
Another question I would ask you, I asked it previously, and actually Ryan LFC is joining us today, which is really good news. So he's going to be hopping on a second after Owen finishes up with Mexico, talk about the starting 11 for Jamaica. So stay tuned for that. Edson Alvarez, in the number 6 position against Tyler Adams, the guy who you think potentially down the road could be Mexico's captain. Tyler Adams, more or less the U.S.'s captain right now. What are your thoughts there on the two? I asked you this in the last episode, or last time you came on the show, but I know that constantly all over Twitter, people are comparing the two. Alvarez is playing really well right now. Who do you think is right now the better player?
I think Alvarez. This is what I said to you a few weeks ago, and I think I still maintain that. I think you can see, obviously Leipzig are in a very difficult Champions League group along with City and PSG, but I think you're seeing Alvarez really shine in the Champions League. Adams hasn't necessarily had that level of performance. An error of his proves costly when Leipzig play at PSG. Also the versatility that Alvarez has as well. He's played at center back quite a bit in his career, has that ability to play at center back, even at right back. Adams can play at right back as well, but the ability to also play center back, physically a taller player, a little bit more imposing. He gives you a threat at set pieces. He scored some goals in the last few months, in the last year or so with Ajax. He's become a threat going forward as well, gotten better on the ball. They both provide that intangible in terms of the leadership, but I think Edson's versatility positionally, I think puts him a little bit ahead of Adams right now.
Okay. And obviously Adams right now is struggling slightly, right? So, I mean, it's right. I think right now I agree with your answer.
Right. And also form, right? On form, I think certainly Edson is in really, really good form and has been throughout the duration of 2021. And Adams has had a little dip perhaps now with Leipzig.
And then obviously Jimenez being back and Jimenez playing well right now for the Wolves. US has Ricardo Pepi right now as their number 9. Can't really compare the two. Obviously, Ricardo Pepi playing for FC Dallas, a guy who's still extremely young. Jimenez has had a lot of Premier League success, and now he's back healthy. Talk about that inclusion of Jimenez in this next chapter of the rivalry, and do you think he'll have success against the US's more inexperienced center backs, potentially, who I think will be Robinson and Chris Richards? Right.
Well, I think that's another area of concern potentially for the United States. Well, certainly not calling up John Brooks.
Exactly.
Certainly the most experienced center back that could have been called up, someone who would potentially you'd feel a little bit more confident as an American fan marking a Raul Jimenez than two more inexperienced center backs in Miles Robinson and Chris Richards, while both talented players. I think having Brooks there could be a little extra security, but he's not going to be there. I think Jimenez is someone who offers so much to Mexico as a really important player, not just only as their main goal scorer, but also really their main creative threat. He's really their best number 9 and their best number 10, his ability to drop deep in this midfield, as I mentioned before. I think of the midfielders that Mexico have or who are in the picture, certainly who are in this squad, the only real number 10 is Sebastian Cordova. And he's not really playing very well in America right now. He's not consistently in the starting lineup. I mean, he's not a consistent starter for Mexico either, but Raul Jimenez is, and he's a player who can drop deep very well, link play, put his fellow forwards through on goal. A very creative player, really good with his back to goal. So he offers a lot to Mexico in addition to scoring. In his last 19 appearances with Mexico, obviously there was a big gap between the first 15 or 16 of these and then the last 2 or 3, given how long he was out with injury. But in those last 19 appearances for Mexico, he's got 18 goals or assists. So a player who is used to affecting the game for Mexico in a really positive way, in a big way, either with goals or assists. And he's going to be very, very important in Cincinnati as well. Also, if Mexico are potentially put under pressure, he also gives you the option with his physique, with his size, to play a little bit more direct if you need to skip through the midfield and try to play a little bit more route one, and try to move the ball forward in that way as well.
I'll be real with you, Owen. I'm a little nervous. So previously, I believe I predicted a 2-1 scoreline for USA versus Mexico in our last episode, last time we talked. Since then, though, the inclusions from Greg Berhalter leaving Brooks off, like we talked about, Dest going down with an injury. Pulisic is back, but Pulisic, we don't know what Christian Pulisic we're going to get out there and how many minutes he's going to put in. The communication between Chelsea and the U.S. Obviously, he came as a late substitute in Chelsea's last match. Ricardo Pepi being extremely young and having a good string of games, but struggling a little bit now on the MLS level. As far as scoring goals, he's still playing relatively well. I think it falls on those dual number 8s for the U.S. Musa, McKennie really need to step up. I'm interested to see, that right wing position. I believe Aaron's still most likely slot in there for the U.S. And potentially give, Gallardo some trouble. I think it's just going to be a battle of, who gets on the scoreboard first, who sets the tone, not to be cliche, but ultimately it's the U.S. at home defending against Mexico. Anything can happen. What's your predictions now that we've heard the majority of what you've had to say about Mexico?
I think I see Mexico getting a positive result, certainly.
Okay.
I believe I predicted a 2-1 win for Mexico on the last show or my last appearance here. I'm going to stick with that. I think the key in it, we've been talking about on the flanks, what's going to happen now that Dest isn't there. What can Jimenez do? I think the midfield battle is crucial in any match, but I think it's going to be big here because I think the United States have found something with that MMA midfield, having those three in there. I think a lot of dynamism, a lot of skill in there, the ability to get on the ball, the ability to move the ball quickly through that sector. I think Mexico are going to need to try to win that battle. I think there was a little bit of concern there in the last window, certainly against Canada when they played Guardado and Hector Herrera together alongside Edson. Canada really won the midfield battle at the Azteca, nearly shaded the possession battle, which is unheard of almost for Mexico playing at home in a World Cup qualifier, to not be dominating the possession battle, to not be having 60%, excess of 60% possession is rare. And so they'll have to try to get on the ball as much as they can, certainly in the United States, and what's going to be a difficult atmosphere, potentially with the cold as well, having to get used to that as well. So if Mexico can get their foot on the ball and get control of the midfield, I think that's going to serve them very well in this match. If they're able to feed the three up top, that they have that dangerous front three, especially with Raul and Chucky, if they're able to get them on the ball in promising positions, I think Mexico have the talent, have what it takes to grab a win.
All right, Owen. So where can my subscribers and listeners find you come game time on the 12th? Because I'm sure you'll be very active.
Yes.
Is Twitter the best spot?
Yes, Twitter's the best spot. So you can see her on screen at 4Kicks blog. That's where you can find me. Just give me a follow. Would be much appreciated. Yeah, and I'll be on there. Sharing my thoughts. Also, we'll be doing some articles as well. Some video wrap ups, potentially video preview as well. So I'll be there. All of my content will be on Twitter.
Awesome, man. Thanks again for joining us today.
No problem, Brian.
Really appreciate the breakdown again. And guys, give the guy a follow. He provides awesome content. Really, really good stuff, Owen. Thank you.
Yep, no problem, Brian. See ya.
All right, guys. And joining us now, I joined his show in the past. He has a great channel, is Ryan LFC. He talks about Liverpool, which I'm a Liverpool supporter, as well as the Reggae Boyz Jamaican national team. Here he comes, coming in. Ryan, how's it going, man? What's up?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Wonderful platform. I really appreciate it, man.
How you feeling, dude, after today's loss? I hate to bring it up, but...
Yeah, it was difficult, but, our first loss this season, I think Liverpool, we need a few more signing come January. In the midfield kind of a little bit thin, especially with a lot of injured player out. But Klopp, great manager, he will bounce back, and it's just one game so far in the Premier League season we lost. So, but too many draws, not good. First loss, I hope we can beat Arsenal after the international breaks.
It's going to be a tough match, too, and an extremely important match. I want to hear your thoughts real quick. I was talking to Owen before the show. West Ham, were they for real? What do you think?
Very good team, very good coach team. They are a very, very difficult team to score on. You can see it, Liverpool, it find it really, really difficult to break down this West Ham team. Don't forget they beat Man United this season. They beat Man City, they beat Tottenham, and also they beat Liverpool. So they are a very good team. You're not beating these tough team, big team in England. That simply means they are a well-coached team. So they will be right up there challenge for the top four if they can keep Mikel Antonio fit, because he's the one who's very special, who getting the goals for them. And they're getting a lot of goals from different players. So they will be good.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about Mikel Antonio in just 1 second. Ryan, tell us where they can find you, who you are, what you do. Obviously, Liverpool, Jamaica.
Yeah, I'm based in Toronto at this moment. I am from Jamaica. So at this moment, I live overseas in Canada, Toronto. So I talk about the Reggae Boyz. I have a Reggae Boyz podcast. You can find that on YouTube. Type in Ryan LFC. And my channel is Ryan LFC. And we just talk about Reggae Boyz, and we just talk about Liverpool Football Club.
Let me ask you something. Do you find yourself outside of Jamaica and CONCACAF rooting for Canada just because they're exciting, they're up and coming, and you're there right now? Or do you don't have a soft spot for them whatsoever?
Listen, I live in Canada, so I always have a soft spot.
Yeah.
You know, people has been saying, yo, talk about Canada. But just because sometimes the game at the same time with Jamaica game. So I want to do a watch along. I want to do stuff. But it's not like the English Premier League where 5 o'clock Jamaica play and then 9 o'clock you will see the Canadian national team play. It's very difficult. Most of the time the game playing at the same time. So I will talk about Canada, especially if they make it to the World Cup.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And I appreciate you joining us today. Let's talk about Jamaica. We were talking about Liverpool. Let's talk a little bit about Jamaica and this upcoming match. Of course, they have El Salvador right before the U.S. Let's talk about the form of Jamaica right now, coming off of the big World Cup qualifying victory versus Honduras. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the players that are available for Jamaica for this upcoming 2 games?
Well, first and foremost, Coach Theodore Whitmore under a lot of pressure to get the result for the Reggae Boyz national team. He's a legend, scored 2 goals for Jamaica in the 98 World Cup. And I think with the likes of Leon Bailey and Mikel Antonio coming back in the squad, that's a positive look on Coach Theodore Whitmore. But another positive, Jamaica will arrive in El Salvador come Monday. That's a big thing for the Reggae Boyz. They're going to have a lot of game, a training session in El Salvador, preparing for that game against El Salvador. I think that game against Honduras, very good performance. And I tell you something, Jamaica play much better away from home. That's all this type of football Coach Theodore Whitmore play. So I'm telling you, people, El Salvador, you have to watch out for this Jamaican team because they are very dangerous at home, away from home. But at home, they are not the best team.
Interesting.
Hopefully, we can, just because all them set up the team, we like to be defensive, we like to be on the counter, picking team on the counter. But when him supposed to be at home, they find it really difficult to break down team.
Okay, I hear you. And that's the one thing about the home field advantage for this match for Jamaica is that fans for the U.S. game are allowed back, right? If you are vaccinated, then you can attend. So I'm expecting, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, sold out, Kingston Park, I believe. Is it Kingston Park?
Kingston, Jamaica, it will be 5,000 people. But, Jamaica, it probably have more than 5,000,
Yeah. So what type of environment can the U.S. expect down there?
Trust me, I must say USA team, fantastic team, good player. But I think USA away from home this year in the World Cup qualifier, something about them. I don't know if they don't have the experience, but I know they have an experienced manager and an experienced staff. But when it comes to the United States, traveling away from home against El Salvador, they find it really difficult. Yes, they beat Honduras by 4-1, but in the first half, they find it really difficult. They're playing away in Kingston, Jamaica. The first time fans will be back in Kingston, Jamaica. It's going to be very crazy with the likes of Mikel Antonio, Leon Bailey. All of these players will hope for it. Ravel Morrison, all of these players, Anthony Grant, they are the players who are missing for that first game against the United States. And if Jamaica can get a positive result against El Salvador, coming to Kingston, Jamaica, I see Jamaica defeat the United States team. But we cannot take the United States team lightly. They have some fantastic players and they have a very good coach that better than Coach Theodore Whitmore. If it comes down to tactics,
yeah,
the United States manager will always get the better of Tapa Whitmore, like in the Gold Cup.
We talked about, I came on your show before. You asked my thoughts on Greg Berhalter. It's interesting to hear your thoughts. Everything's relative, right? Who your manager is. A lot of the U.S. fans have an issue with Greg Berhalter based off of his selections. But tactically, the U.S. has played well, right? We saw them win 2 trophies this past summer. What's your message to U.S. fans about Coach Greg Berhalter? Do you think they're being too rough on the guy?
Listen, United States fans, put my big screen and talk to them. Put my big screen, make they see my face. United States fans, be careful what you wish for. You have a very good manager. It's going to take time for him. It's a difficult time. World Cup is based on result. Nobody cares who play pretty. Once you make it to the World Cup, that's when it matters. You start to play pretty football. World Cup is a result game. Be appreciative of this guy. He's probably not the greatest, but he's one of the best out there right now. The United States can really know the United States players. So humble, patient. I would love to have the United States coaching this Reggae Boyz team. If we Reggae Boyz fans have a problem with Coach Theodore Whitmore, you guys win 2 trophies this summer and still putting pressure on the coach. Come on, man, be reality. Missed the last World Cup, and the United States will definitely make it to the next World Cup. So ease the pressure, see what I'm going to do in this next 2 games, and then you can pile back the pressure. But calm down, United States fans. A lot of football leave to play. That's all the message I'm sending to you, United States fans.
Well, we'll leave it at that. And I think a lot of fans, some of the fans will agree with you, some of the fans will disagree with you. But he has won two trophies, guys. That's the truth here. So let's quickly throw up the Jamaican starting 11 for this upcoming match. I want to hear you walk through the starting 11. Theodore Whitmore, what type of pressure is he under? Like, what results does he need? And we'll get a little score prediction out of you, Ryan. So let's do that.
Captain in goal, Andre Blake, one of the best goalkeeper in CONCACAF, one of the best goalkeeper in MLS. Damian Lowe, Mariapa keep him space in position. Both of them have a very good they are very good together. They don't concede in a lot of goal. Kimara Taxi Lawrence, you know him from Red Bull days. Very good left going forward. Alvas Powell, this is one who kind of have me. I know Whitmore will play Alvas Powell because he's a senior player, but Javon Brown play for Vancouver Whitecap. He's a shout. He just recalled because Jamaica have 2 players out. Andre Gray, that's the QPR striker, and also we have the goalkeeper who play for QPR. So we have 2 players out of the Reggae Boyz team. So, but for me, Alvas will keep in place. Ravel Morris, I'm going to add something different to our midfield. Control, creativity, he have it into him. And Speedy, one of the most improved USL player in this Jamaican national team. And Anthony Grant, one of the best all-in midfielder in CONCACAF, in my opinion. So, pretty decent back 4, solid midfield, and up top, you're going to have problem. Whether it's going to be Mikel Antonio, it's going to be Junior Flemings, it's going to be the big man, Mikel Antonio. This is a very good team, but one player missing out of this Reggae Boyz team is Jamal Lowe that play for Bournemouth in the championship. If we have Jamal Lowe, I would put him right in that spot where Junior Flemings. But Junior Flemings going to give you work weight. I'm going to give you assist. Sometimes him kind of a little bit more, him kind of a little bit selfish, but that's Junior Flemings. That striker, you're going to need striker kind of a little bit selfish. But this is a very good lineup, and I think this is the best lineup at this moment. No, a few pieces misses, but I think this can get the result against El Salvador. And come Kingston, Jamaica, you probably see the similar lineup if no one get injured.
So Kamar Lawrence came out recently, I saw, and said that he still believes Jamaica will qualify. What are your thoughts, Ryan? Do you think they have a chance? Because this is a scary lineup I'm seeing here, especially with Antonio and Bailey, players that we haven't seen as U.S. supporters come against this U.S. team. Let me 2 questions. Do you think they will qualify? And do you think they'll get more than 3 points potentially this upcoming 2 matches?
We must get 6 points. If it's not 6 points, it's 4.
Yeah.
This game against El Salvador is very crucial. Beat El Salvador, they automatically out of the picture, and get something from that game against United States. That's going to be very difficult for us. It's going to be a very difficult. But for me, 4 points I'm looking at. I'm looking at beating El Salvador, and if we can get a win or a draw from the United States game in Kingston, that will be good. But for qualify for the World Cup, win this game against El Salvador, yes. But losing that game, I don't think we will qualify if we lose. We must pick up 4 points. Whether it's going to be a draw against El Salvador, a win against the United States, it have to be 4 points. If we don't pick up 4 points, I don't think we will make it to the World Cup.
So you've said it before in the past. Do you think Alvis Powell is the weak spot?
Yes.
To make a defense.
The weak spot. I haven't been playing for Philadelphia Union. I haven't been fit. Whenever I'm playing for the national team, whenever I'm going forward, he cannot come back. So for me, he's the biggest weak link in this Jamaican team right now. Trust me on that.
Of the players that have been available for Jamaica, who is your most valuable player amongst these guys so far, these World Cup qualifiers? Who's been the most consistent for Jamaica?
Anthony Grant.
Okay.
Sweden done best goal in the midfield in CONCACAF. Believe it or not. He made Jamaica much better. Whenever he play, Jamaica don't lose. He not play against Mexico. He come off against Mexico in the last 5 minutes, we lose. Not playing against the United States, we lose. We play against Costa Rica, Honduras, he play, we win, I'll pick up a point. So he's the most important player for the Jamaican team. That all in midfield is very, 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 very critical for Jamaica. So Anthony Grant for me is the most important player on this roster for Jamaica.
You know my thoughts, Ryan. Let's talk about him, and then we'll get your score prediction. Andre Blake, we have Ochoa, we have Stephen or Turner, whoever the U.S. throws out there. Where does Andre Blake rank amongst CONCACAF keepers? What are your thoughts?
I think he's a very good keeper. Very good keeper. He has won everything. You have to win in the game in MLS. I would love to see him play in the Premier League, whether it be in the Premier League or the Championship. I think he's very good. But unfortunately, he signed a long-term contract with Philadelphia Union. So that's going to be very difficult for him to leave. But he's a very good goalkeeper, right up there. I think he's the best goalkeeper for Jamaica of all time, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's probably Navas number 1, obviously, and then I think it's Andre Blake number 2. Let's get your score prediction real quick for both matches. I'm curious against El Salvador what you think, against the U.S. what you think, and then we'll round out the show there, Ryan.
El Salvador win. I'm going with a 2-1 victory for Jamaica. And the United States game, this is a very tricky one. I would love to win it. The only way we'll win that if we beat El Salvador, I predict 2-1. We beat El Salvador. So the United States game, I'm going to say 1-0 to Jamaica at home.
Okay. And guys, I'm going to give my score prediction real quick for this match and for Mexico, which I didn't do when Owen was on. Things have changed, Ryan, right? Serginho Dest is missing now. He's not there. We have more of an inexperienced back line. I think the U.S. still beats Mexico 2-1, but I think on the road against Jamaica, I said it before and I'll say it again, this is going to be a really tough match, and I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw against Jamaica and Kingston. That's what I'm predicting there.
That's not a bad score. That's not a bad score, my brother.
And Ryan, one more question for you. Where do you see Liverpool finishing this year? What do you think?
I have to keep my level-headed. I predict Liverpool to win the Premier League this season. So 4 points behind Chelsea, 3 points behind City. I think 1 point behind City. I'm still going to say Liverpool to win the Premier League. If they can get everybody back fit, the midfield of them, I still think we can give it a run.
And one more time, Ryan, before we end the show, where can the subscribers find you?
They can find me on Instagram, Ryan LFC Domination, on Twitter, Ryan LFC 13, YouTube, Ryan LFC. So see where you see it right now. That's where you can type in on YouTube and find Ryan LFC. I'm very easy to find. Just type in Ryan LFC and you will see me pop up.
All right, guys, there you have it. That's Mexico. That's Jamaica. Those are the two upcoming games for the U.S. Must needed points for the U.S. as well as Jamaica. Guys, that does it. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining me, man.
I really, really appreciate it, man. Thank you, man. All the best to you against Mexico and the United States. All the best in their game.
And I'll be on your channel next week, right? Next Sunday.
Yeah. Definitely. Most definitely.
So, guys, stay tuned for these matches. Like always, two things. Go USMNT. Keep supporting your local club. We'll talk later. Take care.